Linda Mazur is an English teacher in Hanoi City. Apart from her passion of teaching, Linda finds something special to her in Hanoi, the architecture of old villas.
Looking at Hanoi, and there's so many layers of architecture here. There's the temples and the tube houses and the modern and the French, and I found it all very fascinating. And when I started researching the Vietnamese architects, the Beaux-Arts College, fascinating, absolutely fascinating, the changes that occurred 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. And these are all were designed by Vietnamese architects, not French.
French and modern architecture, however, are not Linda's favorite. In fact, the architecture of villas built in Hanoi from 1920 to 1930 is what she is more interested in. And this villa in Nguyễn Du Street is where she often comes to and does researches.
This building is one of the most beautiful in Hanoi. It was owned originally by a Mandarin named Vi Văn Dinh. He came from Lang Son. He was the Lang Son governor. Unlike the French designs that had so many fancy things on it. And I really like the concept of the overhanging balcony, because in Vietnam especially, or in Hanoi especially, there's heavy rain or very strong sunlight. So when you have a beautiful veranda like this, you could have tea here, and the overhanging veranda protects you from the sun and the rain.
By now, Linda has carried out researches on hundreds of villas in Hanoi. To do so, she has to visit the villas, talk with locals, and take scores of pictures for illustration.
I've been very, very lucky because I keep meeting people who introduce me to people who introduce me to people who know about these houses or the architects. I started taking photos of the houses I like in order to make a mock-up, a book that I could show to people and explain what I was doing. Because if you just explain it, hard sometimes to get your idea across. But with the book and the photos, I can just show them exactly.
This discussion, held by Linda at Bookworm Bookstore, is a chance she can reveal her findings not only to the locals but also other expats in town. She also hopes that such event would be helpful in calling for efforts to preserve one of the interesting features of Hanoi.
I think the more attention they get, the more care they will get. Now, I mean, everybody's going to protect the Opera House or Presidential Palace or the Metropole Hotel. Those are historic buildings. And I think these are just as beautiful, and some of them are as historic. So many important things happened in these buildings, but people haven't grown to love them yet, and hopefully they will.
Many of the guests tonight are expats, both the newcomers and veterans. For most of them, the talk is not only interesting, but also is helpful in equipping them more knowledge about the city they are living in.
Normally what you think of when you come here are the tube houses and the French colonial architecture. So to see the discussion about as she is calling it, the post-deco, the sort of international style, was interesting.
I think her passion brings out the story. It's part of Hanoi I know nothing about, so it's a discovery for me. And I'm going to go around, look at the houses from the maps that she handed out and see for myself.
With the photos and documents she has, Linda plans to write a book featuring Hanoi's old architecture. And until the book completes, this Canadian lady will continue her trips inside the hidden corner of Hanoi. With her tireless effort, Linda has now gathered a lot of information about the old architecture of Hanoi and has carried out many projects to call for the preservation of these villas in the city. For many expats, their love with Vietnam can be seen through the great interest with the cuisine or the culture. But for Linda, the old architecture of Hanoi is the bond between her and the city. This is Quang Anh reporting for Culture Mosaic.